Information Station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
Ocala, baby, what makes you look so good? Ocala, baby, what makes you look so good? Why don't you love me like I know you could?
All right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock, beautiful Friday morning, and there's that Ocala Baby song, and that must mean that John Sotomayor is in the area. In fact, he's right here in the studio. This is his show. It's called Ocala Magazine Radio. John Sotomayor is the executive editor of Ocala Magazine, and he brings us wonderful guests and different topics every week, and he's here to do it again today. Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good morning, Larry. I'm doing great. Yourself?
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Well, we do have another fabulous show today. As I mentioned on the show 2 weeks ago, May is Mental Health Month.
Right.
Yes, and so we're going to focus today on that topic. And with me today is my guest, Joyce Urban. She is a BSN RN BA MA LMHC.
Wow.
Of her business.
That's a lot of letters, huh?
That's right, like an alphabet. Urban Counseling of Ocala. Good morning, Joyce.
Good morning.
Joyce, we're going to go right into the topic. As I mentioned, May is Mental Health Month. Can you tell us more about that?
I did a little research yesterday, and I found that it was designated in 1949. What the specifics around that were, I really don't know. Other than, mental health was starting to, be, awareness and to really kind of look at some issues that were going on. So I guess someone in the Senate or someone has brought attention to the issue.
Excellent. And a couple of months ago in our March issue, we had a couple of features on mental health subjects. One was called the Parental Guidance Required, and that we focused on teen angst, one of your specialties. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, and what you specialize in?
Okay, first of all, the reason for all the alphabet soup is prior to this career, I was a registered nurse, and I worked in many levels of nursing. Then we moved to Orlando, and we had our children, and that's when I became involved in youth groups and really, wanting to work with some kids that were having some issues. I was involved in a national youth program and went around the country teaching about that. And we went to our national summer conference, and that's where I was faced with kids coming to tell me they wanted to commit suicide, they were cutting, they were burning, all kinds of different things that at the time I had no clue what to do about. So that's how I got involved in this career, going back to school and wanting to be able to be there for these kids.
Fantastic. And for our listeners who want to know more about her practice, we covered her extensively in our feature Urban Renewal, also in the March issue. So take a look for that. So let's focus on some of the issues here. What are some of the concerns with mental health? What does the general population need to consider?
Well, the latest statistics that I saw that I looked up yesterday was from the Centers of Disease Control, that 1 in 5 people in the United States suffer from mental illness in one shape, form or shape.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that it still carries a stigma. If people, quote unquote, go to shrinks or they go to counseling or something, they really feel that there's something wrong with them, that is just beyond any kind of help, which is not true. We need to be aware of depression and anxiety and then other issues that come forward that people are suffering with, phobias and bipolar and all kinds of different things. And there's help out there. You don't have to live with these disorders, without getting some help.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about some of the little diversity between the topics we're talking about. There are more serious concerns like the bipolar, schizophrenia, but what more people need to understand is that the other things like anxiety, depression, those are also forms of mental.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you really can look at mental health as kind of being on a continuum, where you have depression that can go into, long-term depression, or bipolar being part of a depression cycle. And the same thing with anxiety. You can go from, just normal stress, anxiety, all the way to, having issues where you cope with stress by absolutely having, total split. So it's a real, just an array of issues, that people deal with.
Okay. So share with our listeners, how does mental health issues manifest?
It's genetic from some, it's biologic for some others, it's social, how you were raised in your environment, what are some of the perspectives and insights that you were taught, situational. So there's a whole gamut of of issues that can come forth and present themselves with mental health symptoms.
Okay. So what are some of the signs that people can be looking towards if either they themselves have some of these concerns or somebody they know, family member or something?
Well, particular depression. If you're depressed more than I think it's 6 months, day in and day out, and really don't see any daylight or don't feel safe or happy, that can be really a sign if you're having some depressive symptoms. That does not include if you're going through grief, because going through grief obviously is a natural progression, and that you go through depression as you're dealing with the loss of a loved one.
Okay. And when we were talking before, when I was interviewing you, we focused on the biological aspect of it, and you mentioned that there's a biochemical situation. Can you go into that for us?
Well, we recognize in the brain that there are some biochemicals that are particularly related to mood disorders. And the first one is norepinephrine, and the second one is serotonin. So a lot of the meds that are out there that can help with these different issues, they either prevent the uptake of these chemicals within the brain, or they produce more, to have more, whatever the balance is required to obtain mental health, get out of depression, get out of anxiety, those kind of things. So there is medical support that goes along with counseling and therapeutic measures to help situations.
Okay, and you mentioned on a key word there, which was balance. We talked about this the other day as well. You were referring it to me that for some people it's less than the normal amount, and others it's more than. Can you go into that again?
Well, again, it goes back to, if there's it's very similar, and this is the thing that it just bothers me that people want to stigmatize this, because a lot of times this is hormones. Same thing with diabetes is hormones, and that's acceptable and that's okay. But when there's issues with depression and anxiety, and they have this hormonal imbalance with these, with these different biochemicals, along with estrogen and testosterone and those kind of things that happen. That can create situations of chronic depression or chronic anxiety, or just really not feeling good.
Okay. And what are some of the triggers?
Triggers can be memories of the past. For instance, I work with folks that have some PTSD issues, and in particular there was a young lady who, as a young child, before she had any memory or ability to put words into what was happening, she was a young child who really went through a lot of medical concern, medical crisis.
Yes.
And she couldn't understand. She was 25 years later, and she couldn't understand why she was having issues with crowds and with loud noises and things like that. And we were able to trace it back to this health crisis that she had as an infant.
Right.
So that's a trigger. Another trigger is, if there's something that drastically changes in our lives, divorce or death or foreclosure with the economic crisis that's going on. That triggers depression, anxiety, anger, because it's just not the way it's supposed to be.
A lot of relatable issues, actually, for most of us, I think. Let's talk more about the PTSD, because this is actually something that's come across in my research and interviews with people. I particularly recently interviewed someone, Larry, who is formerly in the military. And he's just come back home, and this is a well-functioning guy. He's physically able, he's capable of many things, yet this disorder that he's suffering from is keeping him from other things like employment,
Oh,
from
yeah. Oh, yeah.
relationships. For him, it's become short term. He can't maintain something. So, can we focus on that, on PTSD?
PTSD is thought to be when someone faces a real or even an imagined threat or loss of life, and or loss of something valuable such as your family or something like that. And so how it manifests itself is usually through nightmares, through flashbacks. In particular, if a soldier has been over in Afghanistan and steps on something that feels like a one of those IEP explosive devices, and then they just freeze, and then they may react that they're back in Afghanistan. And it's a tough situation, and the anxiety is tough, and the depression is tough. Usually creates huge issues within any kind of relationship, and just be in a relationship with yourself, because you feel like you can't even trust your thought process in your brain.
Yes, absolutely. And now, of course, military is one form. Seeing other people get injured or other catastrophic situations like that is tough. But we've also encountered other forms, occurrences in people's lives to look at that any civilian could suffer from. We talked about some physical traumas, some social traumas, including rape or bullying. And you even mentioned to me the exposure to traumatic occurrences, like even just watching the Boston bombings on the news.
Right. That creates, especially for children and folks, who just really, their sense of safety is destroyed. We all experienced that on 9/11 when we realized that we were vulnerable.
Right. When
in a normal situation, we feel like we're safe here in this country and going about our everyday world, then these issues of violence and that kind of mass kind of thing is in the back of our minds, but not bring it to a prevalence. But then something like the bombing certainly is everybody's attention, and it rattles your sense of safety and can create issues, can create some nightmares, can create some sleepless nights and anxiety, especially if you're going to be going to any kind of large outdoor events or something like that. Sure.
Okay. Well, help me understand this, and I'm sure our listeners have the same questions. How is it that one person can watch the same thing on the news and not affect them with PTSD, and someone else can? What is the difference?
The short answer to that is we're still learning. We're still figuring that out. We're still learning about the brain. This field has really only been in existence about 150, maybe 200 years, versus medicine that's been thousands and thousands of years. So we're learning more and more each day, and with more and more capabilities of actually measuring brain waves and biochemical things and whatnot. Number two, depends upon how you were raised, what environment you were raised in. Were you raised in a healthy environment where there was balance, and you felt protected as a whole, and you were able to really talk about your fears and talk about what was really bothering you, and you had somebody who was there who really listened, versus somebody else who that was not a part of their household. And so a lot of these events can affect people much greater, depending upon their social situation and their experiences and their insight.
That's fascinating, especially about the brain discoveries. When we were talking about teen angst the other day, you mentioned about a recent discovery. Can you share that with us again?
Oh, I guess it came in about 2 years ago. With that, we, the mental health field, psychology, psychiatric field, discovered that the brain is not really fully developed until we're about 24 or 25. And what that means is there's a connection between the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain that actually then allows us to put meaning to certain situations, have aware of global consequences, many things. And so when we're dealing with teenagers, and if you're dealing with a young man or young woman who just makes these absolutely incredible decisions, and what were you thinking? Well, the bottom line, some of it is because they can't. They don't have that ability to think forward, to really recognize that this could, whatever they're doing could potentially end their life, and they don't get that. They feel like they're invincible. And so that creates a lot of problems with teenagers and conflict with parents.
What are some of the big issues for teenagers that come to see you?
Oh, big issues for teenagers now are, teenage is the year, during the years, that's where you start to break away from mom and dad. And I don't mean, going out and being rebellious and all that. I mean, you start trying on different things to, determine if your parents are Republican, maybe you want to become Democrat or Libertarian, to decide if you, want to follow a faith or you don't, what are your beliefs about certain things, what kind of a crowd of people do you belong with? Do you want to be with intellectuals who like to talk about major advances in news or something, or you just like to talk about current music and what's going on with that? So that's the job, is to figure out where they fit in.
Okay, so in a word, I guess it's about acceptance.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So that hopefully that'll help parents understand what their teenagers are going through, and some of the signs to look for. We did talk about this in our parental guidance required feature. What are, again, some of the signs that a parent can look for to determine if their child or their teenager needs a little extra help, not just a normal?
Well, if you see your child isolating when under normal circumstances they would be, involved in a group or moving forward. If you see, a child who's been doing well in school and then all of a sudden his grades start falling. If you see your child starting to give away some of his possessions, that is one of the cardinal signs of watching out for suicide. Not just kind of, if you see your adolescent down, not just throwing off comments, "Oh, pull yourself up by the bootstraps." Those kind of things that you really, need to tune into and need to be aware of and to get some help.
Absolutely. And in the feature, we talked about, the teenagers frequently acting a little moody or irritable, but there actually are disorders that have these terms. In the other feature, Urban Renewal, we talked about mood disorders, personality disorders, anxiety disorders. Approximately 20.9 million American adults in a given year will experience symptoms of or be diagnosed with having a mood disorder. Can you shed some more insight on this?
Mood disorders are depressive, anxiety, bipolar, which is a mixture of depression and anxiety. So that's kind of the mood disorders that we talk about. And it's very tricky because some of the natural behaviors and emotions that kids and adolescents share can kind of look like some of these things. But that's why you watch, you keep an eye on and you watch. And even I recommend my clients to journal, about what days they're feeling this and how they're feeling it and how long and the thoughts that are going through their heads and things like that, so we can get a better handle on what's going on.
Excellent. Now, let's talk about some of the solutions. In the feature, we also talked about something you use, EMDR. Can you tell us about that?
EMDR is an acronym for Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing. And it was really, became aware, I guess about 20, 30 years ago, by Dr. Shapiro. And what it is that if you've ever been to a pajama party or even with your spouse, during the night you'll go through periods of rapid eye movement. And that's the eyes go back and forth very quickly. What that is thought to be doing is that it's defragging your computer from the day. For instance, as I drove here, I probably passed through 5 or 6 traffic lights, and I don't need to remember those 5 or 6 traffic lights, versus sitting here in with you and helping to promote mental health, treatment and be aware. I'll remember that. So tonight when I go through rapid eye movement, that's going to, keep that but throw the other thing out.
Wow.
So what happens is that during a trauma, if an accident, a threat to your life, a threat to your children's life, if you have that, your brain will initially kind of go into a shock. And so you really won't remember a whole lot of the details, but unconsciously your brain does. And so what that does is we replicate the rapid eye movement and help to bring out the traumatic event, present it, in the current time, that the people have their full coping skills back and able to put the trauma in a whole different perspective.
That's fascinating. Larry and I both had the same reaction. We were like surprised.
It sounds like a real practical use of the science that you're talking about.
Yes.
Make people's lives better.
Yeah.
Not only am I a practitioner of this particular treatment, but I'm also a patient of this. Heavens, I guess about 10, 15 years ago, my children were involved in a very bad accident, and it was only through airbags and the grace of God that they were not injured. And so, I responded and went down and took care of them and did what we needed to do. But then the next few weeks, I noticed every time a siren would go by me, I would become nauseous. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where a siren or even the sight of a fire truck or ambulance, I would have to pull over the side of the road and actually lose my lunch. Mm. After treatment with the EMDR, at the time Dr. Moskovitz was doing that, and after treatment, within 2 sessions, I no longer have that reaction because I was able to bring it up and then deal with it with my current coping skills, recognizing that my girls were not majorly injured, and what a difference it made in my own life.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I was just thinking something here. In my research, I found that people who suffer from addictions, maybe substance abuse, be it alcohol or drugs, will lose their rapid eye movement, and have lack of sleep. How does that affect them? Do you know?
Lack of sleep in anyone, if you don't go through your normal sleep cycles every night and to determine what is going, a normal balance of things. Mm-hmm. People have gone for days and days and days without sleep, and they end up becoming psychotic.
Wow.
Meaning they kind of have break from reality.
Explains me.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the social aspects. You and I had a conversation the other day about how mental health is being viewed in the public today, especially with some of these traumatic situations that occurred. You mentioned Sandy Hook. Can you talk about that a bit?
Absolutely. That was such a horrible, horrible tragedy, and I was affected deeply like that with that situation because I just love kids. And then after, this is just information I've gotten from the media. Nobody has done a forensic evaluation that's available that I know of. It's so easy to blame guns. And, not that I'm a pro-gun or not a gun. I just kind of neutral on that level. But it's so easy to blame the guns. But the bottom line is, my belief is that the underlying factor there was this young man who was hurting. And, Mom was apparently trying to get him help and trying to do many resources out there. But the truth be told, we still have some huge gaps in our mental health services that we really need to take a look at and be made more available, especially with, kids that are having some of these extreme behavioral issues and thought processes, and really get down to what the bottom line issues are.
Okay, and I think you hit it on the head when you said coping mechanisms. One of the big issues that we've covered in the magazine is bullying, and it's a hot topic right now. Most of us think, well, we've all been bullied, at some level or another. But it does affect people's psyche as they grow up.
Absolutely.
It has traumatic, effects on their social life, on their career life, and all that.
On their confidence, on their self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. So how do you help, in the last minute that we have, how do you help kids with the bullying aspect and coping?
Well, we bring them into the office and talk to them about, okay, help me understand what the coping is, what the bullying is, what's going on, and then really kind of be able to change the perspective and help the individual that's being bullied to understand why the bullying is occurring, which is usually because the bully is insecure. And then just change the perspective that they have power in this situation. They are not powerless.
Great, fantastic. There are so many more topics we can talk about this, and we will. We will cover this in another feature extensively, upcoming in a future issue. And Joyce Urban, you said that you would contribute to that feature. So
Absolutely.
I want to thank you in advance for participating in that. And you also mentioned Sandy Hook, and that's actually one of the catalysts for doing the feature, that we want to focus on what's going on with the bombings and the school shootings and all this, that there is mental health issues underlying all of that. And we need to look at that as the ultimate solution to what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's our time today, so thank you for being my guest, and thank you, Larry, for hosting us.
Thank you, John. Good show. We'll take a little break and be right back.
Why don't you love me like I know you
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Where in Florida? A nice day today with partly sunny skies. The high 81 on the coast, up to 88 well inland, and partly cloudy tonight, though 66 to 70. More sun than clouds tomorrow and becoming more humid.